Ever wondered what happens when you suddenly disappear from someone's life? The truth is, they won't just miss you. They'll experience emotions they never anticipated. The emotional impact will hit them harder than you think, often in ways they can't express or fully understand. When you vanish without a trace, it's not just about your absence. It's about everything they lose with you gone. And no, it's not just about them feeling sad. They'll feel these 7 emotions deeply. And they might even change the course of their lives forever. The first emotion they'll experience? Shock. When you vanish without any warning, they won't immediately understand what's happening. They'll be hit with an emotional jolt, a gut punch that catches them off guard. It's as though their entire world shifted in an instant, and they were left scrambling to make sense of it. Shock is more than just surprise. It's the emotional equivalent of whiplash. They'll be left staring at their phone, wondering why you haven't responded. They'll replay every moment, trying to understand where they went wrong. Was it something they said? Did they miss a sign? The uncertainty becomes overwhelming. Their brain will race through every possibility, but nothing will make sense. This emotional confusion is a catalyst for many more feelings. The brain doesn't like being left in the dark. It craves clarity. But when that clarity is absent, the result is a tangled mess of emotions. They'll try to fight the confusion, but the unanswered questions will linger, leaving them rattled. The worst part? The longer the shock lingers, the deeper it cuts. It's the kind of feeling that makes them question everything they knew about your relationship, everything they thought was secure. Shock is the first crack in their emotional foundation, and it sets the stage for the deeper feelings to follow. Once the initial shock fades, confusion takes center stage. They won't know what hit them. The sense of lost direction becomes more pronounced as they try to piece together what led to your disappearance. What began as a shocking surprise transforms into a maze of unanswered questions. It's as if the ground beneath them is slipping away, and they're desperately trying to find some semblance of balance. Confusion thrives in the absence of answers. Every small detail you left behind, texts, emails, moments shared, suddenly becomes a mystery. Was this a sign? They'll ask themselves. The overthinking will begin to spiral as they look for patterns in things that were once simple. A casual remark from you becomes a cryptic clue. A quiet moment turns into a puzzle piece they can't quite fit. And yet, no matter how hard they search, no clear answer emerges. This confusion isn't just mental, it's emotional. They'll feel disoriented, unsure of where they stand in their own reality. It's unsettling, draining, and worse yet, completely destabilizing. The longer the confusion persists, the more it bleeds into their self-worth. Did they not matter enough? Was there something about them that made you pull away without explanation? Suddenly, the emotional fog thickens, and they may begin questioning their own identity or worth. They'll wonder if the bond they thought they shared was ever real or just a figment of their imagination. This phase isn't about clarity. It's about drowning in the unknown. And as they struggle to make sense of it, the emotional weight only deepens, forcing them to grapple with a profound sense of uncertainty. After the confusion comes anger, and it's far more destructive than they ever expected. You see, when someone disappears without a word, they don't just feel hurt or sad, they feel betrayed. Anger rises from the depths of their heart, and it can be overwhelming. This isn't a fleeting annoyance. It's a raw, primal rage that erupts when they realize how much they were left in the dark. They feel completely blindsided, as if you've erased the trust they thought was unshakable. They'll begin to replay every moment you shared, desperately searching for any indication that this was coming. They'll feel like fools. Why didn't they see it? Why didn't they notice the warning signs? Their mind will race with accusations, many of which may not even be logical. But anger doesn't need logic. It demands an outlet. They'll become enraged at your silence, the unanswered calls, and the way you just walked away. It might not be about what you did, but how you did it. The ghosting, the sudden withdrawal, that's what feels like a punch to the gut. Even though anger may not always be expressed outwardly, it festers deep inside. It builds walls around their heart, creating a chasm of resentment. They'll question your character, your intentions, and even the bond you shared. This is the point where they start to wonder, were you ever truly sincere with them? Anger, while often misunderstood, serves as a defense mechanism. It's a way for them to protect their bruised ego, a shield against the vulnerability of your absence. But left unchecked, it can consume them, leaving them scarred. When the anger finally fades, it gives way to sadness, and this is where the true emotional toll begins. Sadness isn't loud or explosive. It's subtle, creeping in like a heavy fog. The absence of your presence starts to feel like a gaping hole in their world. It's not just that they miss you, it's that they feel as if they've lost a part of themselves. Suddenly, everything they used to find joy in feels hollow. The things that once brought a smile now seem meaningless because you're no longer there to share them with. They'll mourn not only the person you were, but the future they envisioned with you. All the plans, the inside jokes, the quiet moments, they'll ache for them, wishing they could turn back time and prevent this from happening. The sadness won't be something they can easily shake off. It lingers and it grows, feeding off memories that they now hold onto for dear life. Every text left unread, every moment shared in silence, they'll feel that absence deeply. This kind of sadness doesn't just come from the lack of communication. It comes from the emotional investment that's been cut off without warning. The worst part? They have no way of knowing if it's a permanent loss or a temporary lapse. In these moments, they may feel alone, abandoned by someone they trusted with their vulnerability. And as the weight of sadness settles in, it creates an emotional void, one that's hard to fill and even harder to escape from. The pain from this sadness isn't about longing for the past. It's about grieving the present moment that never came to be. And this sadness has a unique power. It makes them question the very fabric of the relationship they thought was unbreakable. As the days pass, another emotion creeps in: regret. By now, they've had time to process everything that's happened, and while the sadness may still linger, regret has taken root. It's the kind of feeling that nags at them, slowly eroding their peace of mind. They'll look back and ask themselves, what could I have done differently? The question that follows is even more painful. Why didn't I appreciate what I had before it was gone? Regret is an insidious emotion because it's full of what-ifs. It fills their mind with visions of moments they could have changed or actions they could have taken. If only they had spoken up sooner, been more patient, or loved you better. These thoughts swirl around, like a never-ending cycle that doesn't allow them to move on. Every time they think of you, there's a sense of unfinished business, a lingering feeling that they never got the closure they desperately needed. The deeper the regret, the more it transforms their perception of the relationship. It becomes less about you and more about them, their mistakes, their shortcomings, their failures. They might even feel a sense of guilt, questioning if they drove you away with their actions or inactions. And here's the harsh truth: the regret will stay with them long after you've gone. It will be a shadow that follows them, even as they move on with their lives. They may eventually let go of the anger and sadness, but regret is the one emotion that can linger the longest. It leaves them questioning their past and shaping their future decisions, a reminder of what they lost without understanding why. So, what do you do when you've been the one to disappear? It's easy to feel justified or even empowered by your absence. But before you act, ask yourself, What kind of impact do you want to leave behind? The emotional toll you can cause may not be visible at first, but it's far-reaching. People will feel these 7 emotions: shock, confusion, anger, sadness, and regret deeply. It's up to you to decide if the cost is worth it. Take a moment. Reflect on the relationships in your life. If there's something you've been holding back, something you've been meaning to say, now is the time to act. Because the emotions you stir today may haunt them for a long time, whether you're there to see it or not.